All right, guys, we got episode 47 or 48, which is crazy how many we've done so far, but we have a couple really good ones left, and one of them is Justin Lopez. Justin was a section champ, two-time All-State wrestler, third and sixth, I believe. Went on to wrestle at
Yep.
Penn State, part of three national championship teams there at Penn State, I think. Three, Justin? Three, yeah.
Yeah, three.
Three national championship teams. He transferred to Johnson and Wales last year where he had a real solid season. Unfortunately, nationals, all that stuff got canceled. This year got canceled. But he has more years to compete. Justin, do you have 1 or 2 more years of eligibility?
One more year.
One more year of eligibility for Justin. So he's going to have a really big year. He's doing all the right stuff. We'll get into all of that soon because I know he's training like a madman lately and doing some really cool stuff. So we could talk about that. But Justin Lopez. So Justin, how I start every interview, basic question is, how'd you get into wrestling in the first place?
How'd I get into wrestling? Coach KD. Everyone knows him. he got me into wrestling. I started off KD trained. I started off doing MMA. Like and I was like 50 in 1.5 day. I didn't know, but I know he
Justin, can you hear me? Because you're breaking up a lot and you're frozen. It's hard to hear you. Oh, now I see you. You were frozen for a little.
Did you hear anything I said?
Just the KD part, and then after that, we couldn't really hear.
She's not outside. Where is she? She's in the kitchen.
Uh-oh, he's frozen again here.
We might have to get a different feed for him.
Yeah, possibly. But we could talk about Justin a little bit while he's figuring it out. So I believe, and we'll let Justin talk about it when he comes on, but I believe that he started his 9th grade year too. So I find that pretty interesting. They start.
No.
Oh, you hear me, Justin?
He started way before that.
No.
I was doing some research as I do for all these interviews, and I saw a lot of freestyle. Maybe it was a different Justin Lopez.
No, he did freestyle.
I mean, it was a lot of freestyle though.
Justin, can you hear us?
And he looked like a little kid.
Yeah. Can
Justin,
you guys hear me?
we have a bet. We have a bet going. You got to turn your thing the other way.
What's up?
Okay. So Justin, what grade did you start wrestling in?
I started wrestling late 9th grade year.
Okay, so again, questioning the host is a dangerous game to play, and you shouldn't do this. He questioned me, Justin.
What did he say?
Then the research I did was a different Justin Lopez from New York, so I have no idea who you are.
What? What grade did he think I started?
I don't know.
I saw a lot of I was doing, went on YouTube, and there was a lot of Justin Lopez, a lot of freestyle.
But Justin wrestled a good amount of freestyle.
Yeah, I wrestled my 9th grade year. I wrestled some freestyle. Like I started off light, man. I came in my freshman year at 79 pounds. So I was like,
oh, okay, that would explain.
I wrestled that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrestled cadet 88 pounds.
Right.
Yeah. My freshman year, I didn't know anything about wrestling. I was just like, I just knew I had to grab someone's legs and
try to take him down.
Try my hardest. Yeah. That was the only thing I really knew until about like after 10th grade year, maybe my 10th grade summer is when I really started to figure it out.
So Justin, we got cut off because of that. We got froze up or whatever. But when we asked you what happened, how you got into wrestling, you said Coach KD, but then it kind of muted out there. Why don't you tell us the rest of the stories? Like what happened? Because I know that you two kind of came together at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah, it's one of my closest friends, Coach. I mean, he's a good man. So he got me into wrestling because at first I started doing MMA and jiu-jitsu at Animals MMA, and he was there, and we became pretty cool friends. And after a while of training, he I guess my coach got him to wrestle, and so he was trying to take me along with him. And I don't know. At first, I didn't know if I wanted to do it because I was a big jiu-jitsu guy, a big like striker. I like doing that stuff. But I mean, here I am, man. He got me into wrestling, and still doing it. I love it now. It's probably my favorite sport out of every martial art.
That's awesome. I remember vaguely when you first came on, Coach DeBellis, you might remember this a little bit because Justin, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't start coming to the club until after 10th grade, I believe, or maybe
Yeah,
the spring of 10th grade. But I remember Justin before I remember Khalid because we were at divisionals, Coach DeBellis, with Yonkers that their freshman year, they were in our division. And Pete came up to me, Coach Pete Valpone, who I'm sure we'll talk about later too, who's another, great guy. Pete like grabbed me, was like, watch this guy. I'm like, who? And it was Justin. But it was little, Justin was tiny. And he literally said to me, he goes, man, he's small, but once he puts on some weight, he's going to be the real deal. And I remember watching Justin wrestle a match. I don't know if it was like quarters or whatever. I watched a match and I was like, he does move really well. And then, long story short, the next year I met Justin and got to start to train, with Justin and stuff, which was great. But how did that transition happen, Justin, from you being like, all right, Khalid's talking me into going here. I'll see what's up. But now Coach Pete's a really good dude. He wants us to do some more wrestling. A lot of kids, even though Coach Pete's such a good guy, they might say, you know what, this is hard. I don't want to go all the way up to Somers and go to practice. Like, what made you say, you know what, I'm going to do this? Because you had 25 other kids on the team or whatever. They weren't coming up there. You were one of the guys coming up there. So what made you decide that I want to do this? Like, I want to really give this a go?
I don't know. I think the main thing was 9th grade year. I was really like undersized. I mean, my first match, I wrestled at 113 pounds and I weighed 79 pounds. Like, just like put that into like, no, I probably weighed a little more than 79 actually. It was like right on like the weight limit, like the weight cut. But I remember the first day of practice, I came in at 79 pounds. But I mean, I won the match and I was losing like the whole match. This kid was like beating me up my 9th grade year. I remember it was some kid from I think it was Edgemont or something. And I don't know, I came back and I ended up pinning him and I was way undersized and I just love that feeling. And I mean, 9th grade year, I was like a 500 wrestler, like, I wasn't very good. Obviously, no one's gonna start wrestling and just be amazing at it. You gotta practice, put the time in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just loved winning and just love the competition aspect of it. And it's more enjoyable when you're winning tournaments, not taking third or taking second. You want to win, so you put in more work and you see the results, and then you start to fall in love with it.
So it didn't deter you to go 500 out of the gates. It fueled the fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hated losing. I love winning. So I mean that.
Those are two great things for an athlete.
Yeah. I mean,
do you know what's so
no one likes to lose, and it kind of killed me. I
was gonna say, do you know what's interesting is that did you happen to watch Jay's interview? That was the last one we did, and you guys have so.
No, I didn't. I didn't get to catch that one.
You guys have a lot of parallels because one, now you're at Johnson Wales and Jay was at Johnson Wales and he was super successful there and you're about to be super successful there. You both had good high school careers. You both were 2-time All-State wrestlers. And you both started ninth graders, and you both didn't have like uber successful freshman years. So, what I love about that is one, I mean, I would have liked for you to start earlier. I would have liked Jay to start earlier. It would have been great, right? You take the advantage you could get, but man, you have been pretty darn successful with minimal time in the game, right? Like, do you think that's been maybe a blessing in disguise? Maybe it didn't burn you out or anything? Or do you think it was just how it shook out and you just really were driven and here we are now?
Sometimes I do wish that I started a little earlier because I didn't know about wrestling. I thought wrestling was just like WWE, when I was younger. I didn't know anything about like the actual sport. And it's a great thing. It's it's growing now, but I mean, I feel like starting a little later pushed me a little harder, I wanted to, it made me work. I had to work 2 times what like the average person would because I started late and I had to catch up. So it's definitely a blessing in disguise. I would say it's helped me a lot, just in every aspect. Even when I was at Penn State, like those guys are all, you go into there, oh, I'm a 2-time All-State. They don't care. They're all national champions and all, state champs, and they're all the best in the country. So I mean, that even makes you want to work harder.
Yeah, that must have been some room to train in. Holy cow, you're there 3 years.
Because there's some interesting. Go ahead.
Two-time All-State. That's like bottom of the tier list at Penn State.
I'm sure.
Which is crazy. Yeah. But they're the best program in the country for the last 10 years. They've had a decade of dominance. It's insane what they have done. And Justin has got to be a part of that. And we're going to get into that a little too, because I want to try to steal some secrets here if we could get them on broadcast, because you ain't Penn State guy anymore, so you could sell them out. But no, I'm just kidding, because I know you're buddies with Romans. You don't have to sell everything out. But
that's my guy.
We'll get a couple of tidbits. But let's talk about your high school first before we get there, because I think your high school progression was pretty spectacular, some would say. I mean, that's what I guess the word I would use, because you kind of jumped levels. So, your freshman year, you said you won 500. What happened your sophomore year? And this is really before I really knew you then too. I kind of met you your spring of your sophomore year. So what happened your sophomore year?
My sophomore year, I think that's when I started going to John's, my sophomore year. But I didn't know him too well. And I didn't know any of you guys too well, like at that time. Yeah. And I remember John always telling me I was going to go to J-Rob. And John was like, dude, just stay here and train. Like, don't, like, not to waste your money. Like, it was a good experience. But, John said he could have gotten me way better than J-Rob would have gotten me. Which I mean, John's a fucking good, sorry, I didn't mean to curse. John's a freaking good coach. Like, he could have gotten me a lot better that year. But J-Rob really helped me as well. Like, 10th grade year, got me mentally prepared for the season. And, it definitely pushed me to, like, different limits.
So you went to the 28-day intensive wrestling camp?
Yep. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I went there too.
Yeah, it was not
junior year.
It was not fun.
Yeah.
It
was an experience.
I'm with John on that. Yeah, it's a cool experience. It's something to talk about that you did, and I'm sure both of you guys felt accomplished, because from what I hear, it's brutal, right? And then there's a big run at the end. It's tough, and I think it's definitely something that can help your mental toughness. And J-Rob.
Yes, that's what I was lacking too.
And then he's a legendary coach. With that being said, if a family, and this is just my personal opinion, if a family's saying, hey, should I send him to club wrestling all summer or send him to J-Rob for 28 days? I say send him to club wrestling all summer. That way you could, you're in that room with those hammers 4 times a week. The progression continues. You keep working on something. You get better at it. You keep working on it, right? You did 28 days of stuff at J-Rob, and you might not have seen that technique again for another 2 months, right? Like, so
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure it helped you, but I if anybody's listening to this, my opinion would be the same as John's, where it would be like, hey, go to club wrestling, work. But being that what you said, Justin, that's where you were lacking a little bit, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. It worked out for you, because you did have a pretty successful sophomore year. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I had a pretty successful sophomore year. I took I think like 5th in section that year. Me and remember Trey? That was like
Trey Wardlaw?
my enemy.
Yeah.
How did that was like my rival. Yeah, that was my rival.
So who won it that year, Justin? The year you took 5th?
But the year I took 5th. Well, that's such a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Was that 99?
Oh, yeah, it was 99. You know who it was? It was the kid from Arlington. I forgot his name.
Arlington. Was it Jimmy Duncan? No.
Jimmy Duncan?
I think he was some Spanish kid, like a little small Spanish
Almeida
kid.
or whatever. Almeida.
Yes. I forgot his name.
Him. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, Duncan was a little bigger, I think.
And older. Duncan was like 2011 or so.
He was a state champ, though.
Yeah, he was tough. But yeah, so that kid was okay, but you ended up having a far better career. Do you remember that transition of, okay, sophomore year, now I'm going into junior year, I need to be a little bit more serious. Now you're coming up to the club regularly. What happened there? What was the biggest switch? Do you remember anything specific about, your mentality and stuff?
100%. Like 11th grade is when I started to do 2-a-days. So I would go to my Yonkers practice and then go up to the club. You remember you used to take me all the time. Literally, you were my ride every day.
We're doing it for the people, Justin. I know what's up. We're doing it for the people.
You would take me there, and I would do 2-a-days, and that really prepared me mentally and physically as well. That was just that's a different story, man. That's a different like breed of training, 2-a-days. I mean, you're gonna get better doing 2-a-days. Like anyone's gonna get better, And cool. I had there were some hammers in the room in Iowa style.
Who were your partners at the time? Yeah, who were they?
Some kid named Jacob Camacho. I don't know if you know him. He's a beast.
Good. Yeah, he's pretty tough.
Yeah, Camacho, Satoshi, Randy Earl. Trying to think who else. Oh, Tyler Albus. Tyler Albus was young then though.
Small, yeah.
But he was.
Forgot about Randy Earl. Randy Earl was
tough.
He was a long, lanky wrestler, right?
Yeah, he was tough. He was tall. One of those kids that, I would take him down and he would just get right back up and be right in my face all the time. He was just
It
one
was
of those
good
wrestlers,
though.
you know.
You guys had some great. I remember
Yeah.
those workouts. You guys had some great workouts. But D, something funny about it was I used to drive these guys up, right? Like Justin said, and I have Khalid. Most of the time I had this kid David Ortiz. I don't know if you remember David Ortiz, D, but
Oh
I remember
man,
Dave.
dude.
Yeah.
he's a character, and Justin. And I love Khalid to death, but I will take 1,000 Justins over either of those two knuckleheads in a car. You know, because like I would be like, Khalid would just be touching my stereo, trying to turn up the music. I'm like, turn it down. He'd be like, yeah, okay. And he'd turn it up and I'd like slap his hand and turn it back down. And David was saying God knows what in the back. And Justin was just chilling, quiet. I'd say, what's up? Not much, coach. We just have normal conversation like normal human beings. And these two animals that I had to like, you know, and imagine the food bill to feed Khalid. Imagine the bill on that thing. You know what I'm saying? So
now, how did that work? Because you were already coaching at Greeley, weren't you?
I don't know. With the two-a-days, Justin, in this fall, and this is just my memory, Justin might correct me if I'm wrong on this. In the fall, spring, and summer, I drove them back and forth. Like they would either meet me across county or I would pick them up at their house or I would meet them at Animals or something, and we would go up.
You know where you used to meet us? In front of the deli. Remember the deli? We would get food and then go up to John's.
The old deli, right? By where Animals used to be, right? The old Animals?
Yes.
Yeah. So that over there. But in the season, I know Justin and them were doing 2 days. I think Coach Pete or Coach Ball would bring them up. And then I lived in Yonkers at the time and I would bring them back.
You drive them back?
I would drive them back, yeah.
Yeah. Coach Ball would bring us a lot because he lived in Somers. So he would help us get there. I mean,
that was in the
any way we could get there, we would get there, you know? We would sometimes we would even take the train.
Yeah. Remember a funny story, a side story before we talk about more wrestling. One day Justin and Cleed were up there and it was a snowstorm, right? So I don't know if Justin remembers this, but do you remember this, Justin, before I even say it?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I do.
Remember.
Keep
you'll
going.
remember. Once I start talking about it, you'll remember. So we got to come home. And D, you remember I had
yes, I do remember. I do remember.
Crappy
I already
Mercedes,
know
like that 2000 Mercedes.
Yeah.
It was rear-wheel drive. It was horrible in the snow. So it started to snow, and I have Justin and Cleed in the car. I start driving home, and you know how there's a bunch of hills on 100? So I'm going up a hill. I can't go anymore. Like, I can't go anymore. I'm like, what the heck? So I try to like show myself out, whatever. I can't move. Like, I'm stuck. So I'm like, I have 2 kids in the car. I'm stuck. What am I going to do here? So, of course, I had to be like 28 at the time. I wasn't a baby. This was like maybe 30, almost 29.
You called your daddy, didn't you?
I called my daddy.
You did.
And it was worse, though, than that. See, it got worse because he showed me up. So this guy shows up, and he comes with his all-wheel nice car, shows up, and he's like, I think I took Justin Cleed with me in the nice car, the all-wheel drive car, and he took my car, and somehow this son of a gun got it out. He drove all the way home to Yonkers, followed me home to Yonkers, and all we heard when we got in the car is, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. You gotta call me. I know what I'm doing.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that.
Oh my God. And that was just one of many interesting car rides we had. We had a lot of fun. Justin, I want to let's bridge into that with fun. You know, we'll talk about your junior in a second because that's when you really got in the scene, I believe. Did you say when you got there in the spring of 10th grade and all that stuff and you really became part of the club, I know it was a lot of hard work, but was there things in there that were like that would cause you some enjoyment, right? Like maybe the camaraderie with the rest of the kids in the club, like the car rides up, the tournaments. Was there anything that was like real fun about it to you?
I mean, yeah, I made a lot of good friends wrestling. So just going up every day and seeing them was always a good experience. You know, I mean, I always loved the sport. It's brutal and it's a tough sport, but it brings out a lot in you. And it's good to go through that with someone, like with a lot of people. And, you know, those people in the club definitely helped me get through like the weight cutting and the practices, even the brutal practices. We would laugh afterwards. You remember we would go up top on the ropes and swing from the ropes. And I know, I just remember like all those things. And even the tournaments, we would go and it would just be laughs. I mean, we would go in the van, all of us would go in the van and just jokes the whole ride up. It was good times, man. I miss that. It's different now, you know. It's wrestling's a little more serious now in college.
Oh, for sure. But like you guys, I like to think that the club and stuff had you guys prepare for college with the level that we were kind of going at in that room. But So you did, did a great job. And I'll say right now too, and I'll get more into this as we go, but Justin was always ready to work, right? When he got there, he was ready to go. He was obviously, Justin's a very smart guy, did very good in school. So a lot of times Clete and Justin would come up early with me and I would have to coach youth or something, and it wouldn't even be practice for them yet. And Clete would help me out with the youth kids or something, or walk around and annoy me about something. And like, I would have to be like, Clete, please get away from me for 5 seconds. While you look in the corner and there's Justin doing his homework, right? And doing the right stuff, like sitting there. And I'm just busting Clete's chops, because I hope he watches this. But Clete was obviously doing the right stuff too, helping me with the kids probably, and doing stuff like that. But, he's always a good kid. You always had your head on straight. And you're committed. And I think you believed in the whole process. And I think that was a big thing. And that is probably why your junior year, the success as a freshman, a 500 wrestler, in such a short span of time, you started to get some success. And, Justin, you could talk now a little bit about your junior year. Like that was when I think you made your biggest splash.
Yeah, 100%. So, I remember I was just seeing a lot of success. I was winning almost every tournament that year. Actually, I did win every tournament that year except for states.
Yeah.
So, actually, no, I lost Vegas that year as well when I went to Vegas. But I mean, I won basically every tournament except for the state tournament and then Las Vegas. And I was just seeing a lot of success. And actually, I took second in sectionals too, but I actually didn't think I would go that far in sectionals. So when I took second to Trey that year, I was pretty upset. And I just remember, John, you were always telling me too, always had it in me. And I was pretty athletic.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I went to the state tournament, just like threw it all out there that year, and ended up placing 6th. And that's when I really started to believe in myself, because I made the semis and I lost to Buciello. I remember that.
That was your junior year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my junior year. Yep.
Justin, take a second though and think about that. Yeah, think about how crazy that is. A freshman, first year wrestler, 500. 2 years later, I think you could have done better than 6 too. And that's not disrespecting you. You had a great year. You had a great year. But like, to go from a 500 wrestler that just started as a 9th grader, you got to think some of these kids you beat in this tournament, and these tournaments, been wrestling for 10 years at that point. That's super impressive. And I hope that you sometimes sit down and like think about stuff like that and like, really let it sink in, because that's crazy. You don't hear about that in other sports. But I'm sorry for cutting you off. So you lost to Buciello in the semis.
Something that's interesting about that is that year you lose in the semifinals to a 3 or 4 time state champ Buciello, right?
Yeah, 4, I think.
He was unbelievable.
5 time. Yeah.
So emotionally, you had to be so excited to have the opportunity to be in the finals if you win that match, and then that letdown, and you go into the essentially the consolation semifinals right after that.
Yeah, right? I mean, I don't care who it's to. Like, it could be anyone, and if I lose, I'm gonna be pissed. So I was pretty pissed, even though Buciello had a lot more experience than me. He's been wrestling since he was real young, and I was just pissed, man. I remember being pissed, and that kind of bringing me down. But that's the thing. In 11th grade, I didn't have like the mental toughness that I had my senior year.
That's what I was getting to.
11th grade exactly. In 11th grade when I lost. Yeah, in 11th grade when I lost
in the quarters.
Yeah, exactly. In 11th grade when I lost in the semis, I lost all my matches after that and ended up taking 6th. And then my senior year when I lost in the quarters, that sucked. I lost in triple OT. That was probably, man, that sucked.
I remember
I was pissed that year.
Justin,
that was against Trey too.
Yes, and you know how the Pepsi Arena.
Yeah, that was against Trey too.
How you have like the boards for the hockey arena like out there.
Yeah,
I was standing there. I believe John was standing there, and a couple other club kids were like very close by, and we were watching Justin's match. And if I remember correctly, Trey stalled like it was his job. And not to go too far ahead, but if the people that are listening, Justin lost to Trey in the section finals his junior year, but Justin played at states and Trey did not. And then Justin's senior year, Justin beat him pretty controllably, I thought, in the section finals. And Trey took second at states and Justin took third. And the only reason that Trey took second was because of this quarterfinals match where, I think I talked to Justin after this, and Justin, correct me again if I'm wrong, where I was like, listen, you can't blame the ref on it, but the ref should hit him on a stall. With that being said, Justin should have found a way to probably score because I think he was 10 times better than Trey at that point in time. But if I remember correctly, Justin, he pretty much ran from you the whole match. Was that correct or no?
Yeah, I mean, I must have shot at least 20 times that match. I remember I watched it a couple times after, and I just was so mad. Like that year I really like pictured myself being a state champ, and I would have Buciello again in the finals, but I was pretty confident that year,
Yeah.
I wasn't the same wrestler I was a year ago. I was taking a lot more risks on the mat. I was shooting a lot more. I was just a whole different wrestler. I was getting off a bottom. I remember I worked the whole summer getting off a bottom because I knew his best position was top,
Yeah.
So it was just a whole different wrestler. I mean, and that quarterfinal sucked. I must have shot at least 20 times. I didn't get hit with he didn't get hit with a stalling once, but kudos to him, man. He won, and I mean, it's not. I shouldn't leave it in the hands of the ref,
Yeah, I think we talked about that, but like what Coach Sabella said, and you kind of alluded to, you like that? Alluded to? That was pretty good.
Perfect.
Thanks. Alluded to earlier was the mental toughness aspect, right? Now,
yeah,
it's tough
to come back and take third after that was heroic. Yeah, it's hard
to give you
especially your senior year.
To give you a similar rundown, and I think I talked to D about this before, but my junior year I took fourth. My senior year, like you, I was pretty much the second seed. I was ranked second behind Gregor Gillespie the whole year. Like you were ranked second behind Buciello. I get to the quarters and I lose. I lost a match I shouldn't have lost, but I lost fair and square. Nothing, no bad calls or anything. I didn't even have him stalling. I just lost, and it was very hard. I didn't completely give up. Another kid left the arena, but I didn't wrestle the wrestleback match like I probably should have. And for a very long time, I regretted that. I still think about that sometimes. It's hard, when you put a lot into something and you want to win the tournament and you have to come back, all right, maybe come back, win 2 matches, take 6, take 5th, get back on the podium. But to come back and go all the way for third, that's mental toughness. Was there a moment?
You had to have 4 matches.
Yeah, it's a lot.
From the quarters, you had to have 4 matches.
Literally.
Was there a moment?
And did you dominate in a lot of those matches? Did you pin? And
yeah,
were you on a tear? Did you have some close ones?
Yeah, I had 2 pins, a major, and then I think my 3rd and 4th match was just like a regular decision.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was
there a moment in there, Justin, where when you lost in that quarterfinal match and you went backstage or whatever into the warm-up area and stuff, and you kind of started doubting your plan to come to third, or right away did you know, look, I got to take third in this tournament, or did it take you a second to kind of say, all right, I could do this?
No, after I lost my quarterfinal, I remember just like sprinting off the mat, and I was pretty immature at the time. Like I would get really mad at myself and like cry after a loss. Like it was just like, I don't do that anymore. Like, but anyway, I went under the bleacher, probably cried, bawled my eyes out for like an hour. I was pissed because I've been training all year to be a state champ and it didn't happen. And I think it was when after I won my first wrestleback, that's when I was like, I remember you talked to me too. You and Coach Pete talked to me. You guys told me like you have to come back for third. Like there's no other decision. Like you'll regret it the rest of your life. That's what you told me. Yeah. And I ended up. It was after the first match. After I won that match, then I started to come back and bounce back, and take the second best thing.
Yeah. Well, after you lose in the wrestlebacks, you got to reset your goals. You have to. Mm-hmm. As hard as it is, you got to reset and say, well, it's a brand new tournament. The tournament is third. And we always say the toughest guy in the best wrestler is number 1, second stinks, and the toughest guy is third.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially at a tournament.
Third is the toughest guy in the tournament.
And especially in a state tournament, right? If you lose in the quarters with the friggin' Edgemont, you take third. Congratulations. But to learn using I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's realistic, right? Those kids could fall on their back by mistake. Heck knows. You're at the state tournament. These kids are all legit. And to go buzzsaw through a wrestleback like that is really hard. But I kind of want to move on to your college wrestling. But before we get there, a couple questions about club wrestling and stuff like that. Something fun. We haven't done it for every interview, Justin, but I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. Do you remember any workouts at the club that were in particularly really hard? Do you remember a day that was holy shit, this is football? So tell us about it, because I love hearing these stories. They're fun for me.
I can name like 10 of them, but I think the one that sticks out the most is the one my senior year, right before the state tournament. Okay. Right before the state tournament, John had put us through a sauna workout. So I was on the bike in the sauna, and he was telling me, oh, this time you're gonna get off the bottom from the scale. Like, it's not gonna be the same match. It's not gonna be the same match. And I was just on the bike in my sweater and like my sweats, and I was already cutting so much weight for 106. That was terrible. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, he put us in the sauna, locked us in there, had me do a bike workout, and then afterwards he had us roll in the snow. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Yeah, you do. He had us roll in the snow, and I remember.
You gotta say, I don't recall.
I don't recall.
That's funny. No, John's a great man, but
wait, let me jump into that one real quick, Justin, so John doesn't go to jail. Because he might for multiple reasons. But
no, he didn't force any of us.
No, and that
he didn't force any of us.
So D knows too, though, because it's a cool thing that I think our guys should do on their own. I'm not going to make them do this, but something they should do on their own. It's like the Russian sauna that like Gable used to do peaking. You know, you stay in there for like 10, 15 minutes, you get your sweat up, but you mix from hot and cold, and it's supposed to get the lactic acid out of your body. So we didn't have freezing cold showers. So John, being John, was like, why don't you guys just jump in the snow? And that's what they did. So
we used to do that in college too.
Yeah, wait, awesome. the thing is, John never forced any of us to do that, but like, you kind of just want to show him how like mentally tough you are, so you do it anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I go outside in the snow and I don't really want to do it, but like, I'm like, damn, I don't want to show this guy that I'm I don't want to say the word, but I don't want to show this guy I'm tougher than what he thinks I am.
What he might think.
So I do it anyway, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so I remember that's another thing. John,
go ahead.
John definitely prepared me mentally and physically, mostly mentally though. He put us through some tough workouts, and so did you. I remember. So it would the sprints sucked too. I remember all those sprints. We would do the sprints in the turf.
Yeah.
And I would be so tired. I was skinny as hell too. I was probably like 108 pounds. That sucked.
That was probably me most of the time with the sprints, I would think.
Yeah. You would put us through the brutal conditioning. I remember that. That sucked.
Yeah, he wouldn't waddle over there as much.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? But all right, so let's fast forward a little bit. So again, Justin started wrestling as a freshman. Tough freshman year for a guy that just started and was severely undersized, but still 500. Then you're all section and 2-time all state. So you're, like I said, your trajectory was crazy. Now I remember, Coach, you'll find this actually probably interesting. This other car rides up to John's in the spring of your 11th. I think it was the spring of your 12th grade year. I'm not sure. You weren't fully committed to Penn State yet. But he would be on the phone with Cody Sanderson on the way up. And what I found really impressive about that is two things. One was Justin's, I don't want to use the word optimism, but like he knew what he was getting into. He knew he was going to a program that was really successful. And like he said, he was a great wrestler, being 2-time All-State. But these kids in that room are mostly national champions. These kids are like the best of the best. Mm-hmm. But Justin wasn't scared of the challenge. He was really excited to do it. So I found that impressive. And then I found on the flip side impressive was Coach Cody Sanderson's tactics, because they are so good. And they had Roman Bravo Young and these other superstars coming into the room. And again, no disrespect to Justin. He was 2-time All-State. I was 1-time All-State. Like, so Justin was a stud, but again, national champs in the room. But Cody cared about everyone on the team, at least with the recruiting aspect. And it just kind of shows like, maybe that's why they're so good, because like nobody kind of slipped through the cracks. I thought it was pretty interesting how he's like, oh, this guy wants to come to Penn State and he's committed. I'm going to stay on him because I want him to come to Penn State and see what we could do with them. So maybe Justin, talk about maybe the recruiting process before we get into Penn State. Like, how did that all come about? Your conversations with the coaches, like, you know, what happened there?
I just remember one day, I remember John telling me he was going to talk to Cody, and I just wasn't too sure where I was going to wrestle in college yet. And one day I was just hanging out in my room, and I get this phone call from I see a State College, Pennsylvania. And I actually, like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I picked up and he was like, hey, this is Cody Sanderson calling from Penn State University. And I was like, whoa, like, I couldn't believe it. I was just like kind of starstruck, you know? I mean, he's not famous, but I mean, to a wrestler, he's famous.
Yeah,
You know,
Mhm.
in our eyes. So
his brother's pretty
I was
good.
pretty starstruck, and his brother's definitely famous on any aspect.
I like their other assistant. What's his name?
But, Casey Cunningham.
How do you know Casey Cunningham, Coach?
Well, we went to Penn State camp.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh, okay. Yeah, Casey's great.
He was doing the runs. He had to be.
He's a beast.
He was beating all the kids on the runs.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's
yeah,
like
that was a great camp.
Still.
Those guys were great guys. Cale Sanderson wrestled with every single one of our guys. You know, like that was a great camp. Schreiber went, Walk went, Svjanovic went.
Yep. So I mean, he called me, and I was just kind of starstruck, and he told me to take an official visit, and I wasn't gonna say no. Obviously, I wanted to go to that. Was like my number one school, Penn State. So at the moment, and I was excited to go.
So you went on the visit, right? You went over there, Justin?
Yeah.
So you went there.
Yeah. I went on the visit, and my host was Shakur Rashid.
Okay, who's just awesome.
Oh, okay.
Awesome wrestler.
Also,
he's like a really good.
Yeah, he's
your buddy, right? You guys are friends.
Yeah, we're really good friends now, for sure. And he was the first person I met at Penn State, my first friend, and you know, I'm grateful for him for sure. He helped me out, helped me get there, and so we're pretty good friends now.
Question for me, I don't know if we ever talked about this. This is actually my curiosity. Now, all these kids are superstars. I mean, we might have talked about this before a little bit, but not really in depthly. And I know some of them had like a little like kind of too cool for school, but you got along with all these kids. Were they, even on your recruiting visit, were they accepting right away, even knowing that you were really good at wrestling, but you weren't like, you know, outer worldly good at wrestling like they were? You know, these kids, like I said, are national champs. They're making junior world teams, stuff like that. Did they accept you right away as one of them, or was it kind of a weird process to get kind of in with them?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we all I remember Shaq asked me like, "Oh, what did I want to do?" And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to eat, and then there was no part. Like, they're not allowed to take us on parties or anything. So I just said I'll play basketball. Yeah. And literally, like, the whole team came to play basketball. That's awesome. It was pretty cool. I mean, Bo Nickel, Jason, all of them came to play basketball, and you know, we
were they good?
That was a pretty good experience.
Were they any good?
They're all right. I wouldn't say good, but they're athletes. They're athletes.
Who's the best basketball player you ever met?
I've ever met? Well, I don't know.
You don't remember? See, now we're going backwards a little deep, but John used to have the basketball court over there, and Justin, me, and Khalid used to always have one-on-one games, and Khalid used to always cheat. I would always friggin' win. He acts like he won, but he would always cheat. He would always friggin' cheat. And Justin would win sometimes.
That was kind of like
win. I wanted their confidence to go up for states and stuff, you know?
That was kind of like street ball. That was like a jail ball. We would double leg each other and all that.
Was there a mat underneath you, or is it a hard floor?
I don't know.
There was a mat. Yeah, there was a mat.
There was. Yeah. I don't remember. But I'm sorry. So you said they all were accepting. You played basketball with all of them, and did that help you maybe make that decision? Like, I want to go here.
No, I already knew if we played basketball or not, I was going there. I didn't care what.
Yeah.
You know, that was my number one school. So, I mean, and I wasn't going to get a school better than that. So I would have been dumb to turn that down. Yeah.
So boom, you're in Penn State now, right? You end up going a couple years back. Now you're at Penn State. And we've talked about some of this stuff before, about how like you would have a random day off in the middle of the week, and you know, you guys would do your lifts and then your wrestling and whatever. Was anything like really surprising about the transition from going to high school into college? Like what was something that stood out there?
My freshman year in college, I was a little undersized for 25 too. So it was kind of like starting all over again, you know? Those kids are really good. I'm wrestling Division I. I'm wrestling Big Ten, the hardest conference in college sports. So, you know, it was a lot for me, and I was a little undersized. I remember that. But one thing that like stood out to me the most at Penn State is that we wouldn't go as hard as I thought we would. Like, they're so big on getting your recovery and you know, having like maybe 1 or 2 hard days a week. It's not like John's where we'd go hard every single freaking day, you know, and build that. I just wasn't used to it, you know. It was definitely a transition.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate
everyone
that.
in the room is so good. Like, you know, there's not one person in the room that's that's a nail. Everyone's a hammer.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I like that one. And do you know what's interesting, Justin, about what you said though? I think that Penn State's secret maybe of them having a little bit more fun, but training hard still kind of been out now and people know about it in the sense like play wrestling and sparring. I'm sure you guys did a lot of that. I
A lot of
think
a
this
lot
is
of
a little bit
dodgeball.
a lot of dodgeball in the beginning practice, I'm sure, right? Like all that stuff. But D, this is a little bit for you too. I think I kind of made a mistake last year where we got a lot out of the kids we had, but I was a little bit more, I would push them some days, but I was a little bit more that mentality of like, we'll play a game to warm up or we'll do this and we'll have a little fun because I was used to and I know this is high school wrestling, but I was used to the Aaron Walks and the Strivers of the Jacobs of the world who they were already getting their hard training in. They were already going hard. They didn't need that mental toughness sharpening. But I think Kale, and I can't speak for Coach Kale because he's, an innovator and a legend on so many fronts. Like, everybody steals off of him because how impressive he is. But I think Coach Kale
Yeah,
knows that you guys are already there and you're already really freaking good. And it's like, you have a Lamborghini and you want to keep the Lamborghini running nice. You don't want to run it down and put 100,000 miles on it. And I think that's kind of like
exactly.
his thought of it. But something that really impresses me about Coach Kale that I steal a lot and I talk about a lot, and I actually try to use it in my own life a lot, is his talk. And you hear a lot of the good guys talk about it. And I've heard you say it even in this interview a couple of times. So it's probably been put into your brain as well, is the whole gratitude thing, right? Like I feel like Coach Kale is always talking about gratitude and being thankful for even having the opportunity, right? Instead of being
Yes.
like, maybe talk about that a little bit, Justin. Was that the mentality of the guys in the room? Like, was there ever like the dread of like, oh, here we go again, here's practice? Or was it more like, hey, I'm grateful I have an opportunity to compete at a program like Penn State? Like, what was the mindset kind of, if that makes sense, if that question makes sense?
I mean, yeah, everyone in there that's a big thing, gratitude, you know. Even in not only in wrestling, in life, you gotta be grateful for everything you have. And even if you're not in the best situation, there's always someone who's worse than you, you know, who has the worst situation.
Yeah.
Like think of all the people in like other countries who are getting killed for no reason and who are starving, you know, there's always someone who has it worse than you. And you just gotta be grateful for what you have. And, you know, I had a lot of support around me, my family, my friends, my coaches, and it's just something I'm always grateful for. You know, and even now, like everyone has their own story. Like I'm not at Penn State anymore, but I met some great new people at Johnson and Wales. I love it there. Like I love that school. I mean, I love the coaches, Lonnie, all of them, and you know, it's just I'm grateful for everything that's happened. You know, everything happens for a reason, and everyone has their own story.
Yeah.
I would think that you're quite a resource for Johnson and Wales, coming from Penn State and being in that room with those guys. They must utilize you a little bit as a coach.
For sure.
I know I would.
Yeah. It was a little for sure. Jay was a little. I don't know if we want to fast forward or not, but it was a little different because I was not used to competing as much as I did.
Yeah.
You know, at Johnson and Wales, I compete, and at Penn State, I compete once or twice a season, just because there's so many hammers there. And when I go to Johnson and Wales, I'm the hammer. So I was starting there, and I was just getting used to competing again. And towards the end of the season, you know, I was really getting my groove, and now I'm pretty excited for next season. Man. I really do think I can get a national championship.
Well, we could jump ahead.
Justin,
go ahead, Coach.
To talk about that gratitude thing, and just to backtrack a little bit, you had Pete Volpone as your high school coach. Can you talk about how he was an influence on your wrestling and the opportunities that he offered?
Pete is one of the greatest people I know. I'll say that. I mean, he's taught me so much in life, and we don't talk as much anymore, but I love him actually. Now you reminded me, but he's just like so humble and, you know, just a quiet person. He really cares for you. Like he'll do anything to see you succeed, you know. He'll give me if I needed food, like something or something, like, you know, just anything, he would give it to you, like to see you succeed. You know, he really cares for his athletes, and he's just a great man. He's a great husband, great father, you know, great coach, everything. He's amazing, man. He would even take us out to go eat at Dave and Buster's and all these like Applebee's and everything. You know, I actually missed him. I gotta talk to him. You reminded me.
Yeah, he's a transformational coach for sure, and he has a great impact on
100%.
Section 1 wrestling altogether. And taking you guys to Vegas on those trips, I mean, that must have been awesome.
But another thing with Pete is if you show him that you're putting an effort, he'll put an effort in you. You know, if you show him you don't care, he won't give up on you. But you have to. He likes people who work hard. You know that's who he attracts. You know.
Do you know who he reminds me a lot of is Coach DeBellis. I mean, they have different approaches probably, but they both care a lot about the kids. And there's too many people, I believe, in wrestling that are too worried about themselves, maybe even as coaches, where they want it to be all about them. And we need more Pete's and Coach DeBellis in the world that really care about the kids. Like I've had, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but I've had plenty of conversations with Coach Pete when you guys were in high school, right? And he knew you guys were going up to the club and training. He wasn't going to be able to get up there, but he was working with you guys obviously all season. He did so much for everybody. He made sure that was possible for you guys to go to the club. But he always wanted to know what was going on. He always wanted to make sure you guys were good. If something bad happened, maybe Khalid might have been struggling in class. He knew about it, and he wasn't even
literally, even outside of wrestling. That's what I'm saying. He was just like.
And that's hard. Like Coach DeBus is the man. I think Coach DeBus would do that if he wasn't in the school. But it's a little easier for Coach being that you're in the high school with them, right, Coach? Like Pete was able to like figure this stuff out, being an outsider, kind of going into the schools and figuring this stuff out. And I think that's really impressive too.
He did. I mean, he had some great wrestlers.
Yeah.
And it's all him. Like he over at Ardsley, he did a terrific job. He had like
they were great.
Noah Seitel and Penn Gottlieb.
Yeah, so he's great.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good coach.
And he loved Justin. I mean, he loved Khalid too. He loved Khalid too, and he's just a good dude. But so before you finish up with Johnson Wales, I wanted to talk about something again, how good of a kid Justin is and how with gratitude and all that stuff. So when he was at Animals once, I guess it was in the summer, I don't know what was going on, but he calls me and he said he's at Animals and he wanted me to stop by and say what's up because I lived in Yonkers at the time. So I think Justin was still coming up to the club in the summer to train, but it was just a random day. He happened to be at Animals. He's like, come over. So I said, all right, I'll come over. I'll stop by and say what's up. And Justin gave me, and it's stupid, I have it in my closet. I should bring it over here now, but he gave me a championship ring, Penn State championship ring. Yeah, because he had like 3 of them, which is still crazy. He should keep those, and maybe I'll give it back to him one day because he should show his kids all his rings he's got. But he decided because he was thankful for the help that me and John and other people gave him. But I was there and whatever. He gave me his championship ring, his Penn State championship ring, which to this day, for everybody that's listening, is the best gift I got from one of my wrestlers. So if anybody wants to step up their game, let me know. I'll take it. But it was really cool. I really appreciate that Justin did that. And it just goes to show, I think, other coaches out there maybe that, and I talk to Khalid about this all the time. Like, I don't need to be in AJ Kovacs's corner when he wins a national championship or Camacho's or Justin next year when he's winning D3 titles. I'm not his college coach. As long as my thing is, it's about the kid, right? It's about you guys. And if he's a really good kid, and if you're really getting through him about the right type of stuff, right? Like gratitude and being a good person and being a tough person and a hard worker, they'll do the right thing and they'll show you gratitude back in one way or another. And, Justin did that. And that made me feel like, all right, you know what? Justin appreciated the work that I did with him. And it made me appreciate the work I did with him even more because I knew that he appreciated it, if that makes sense, right? Because some kids don't, maybe they're too immature, they're too young. They don't get it. It's not easy for us either. It's really hard for somebody like Justin who figured out and did it. It's hardest for the athlete than the coach. But, for the kid to be like, okay, I'm thankful for my parents. I'm thankful for Coach Pete. I'm thankful for Coach Ann. I'm thankful for John. I'm thankful for Khalid for getting me into the sport. That says a lot, I think, about the person. And for Justin to understand that at such a young age, I think is super impressive.
Yep. For sure. I mean, I'm always grateful for you and, John and Coach Pete. I mean, that Penn State ring was just something materialistic. I mean, that's still do. I mean, I would give you all of them if I could. My parents want one too, though, so I had to give them one. No, I'm playing. I love my parents.
What's interesting, Justin, you said that? What's so interesting that you said that is, so my mom, me and Kara bought this house last year. We've been in here for about a year, and my mom still had stuff in her house that was mine. Like when we lived in that apartment, I couldn't fit stuff there, so there's still stuff in my mom's house. So my mom basically just wants to get all memory of me out of the house, which is really nice. So she's like, get rid of all my stuff. She just wants Luke over there, not me. So she gets rid of all my stuff. And one day she comes here with all of my trophies. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, they're yours. You got to do something with them. So you know what my first thought, Justin, was to throw them out. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with these things? But then I started thinking a little bit, like you said, you gave them to your parents, right? That was really nice. Like, you know, maybe Luca one day will want to see and whatever, but like I buried them back in the closet because at the end of the day, just like you said, again, that's you showing your maturity. It's materialistic. Like it's a piece of metal, right? Your mind and your memories and the people that you touched along the way, that's staying. That stays forever. Like I'll remember a scrappy Justin Lopez until, you know, I'm done with this sport. I'll remember you wrestling. I'll remember a lot of your matches. I'll remember your work ethic. I'll remember your attitude. But I'm not going to remember every tournament you won by name, right? I'm not going to know exactly what you did and this, that, and third. So I think your mentality is perfect. And I think that's going to help you continue to do well in college with wrestling and then after college, which is even more important. But, you know, let's use that to bridge into Johnson Wales a little bit. You did mention that it's different once you got there because you were the guy. Like at Penn State, you were one of the guys, but at Johnson Wales, you're one of like the top guys. And I know Coach Lonnie pretty good. He's a good dude too. So it's like you went from one program with, you know, the Sandersons, which are legends in the game. Actually, let's actually back up. You went from one program with Pete Valpone, great dude. Then you go to Penn State where these guys are good dudes, but legends in the sport, a little different maybe. And then to Lonnie, who I have a lot of respect for as well, Coach Morris, and I think he's a great dude as well. Maybe talk like what you were saying with Coach Sabelis before a little bit, but a little bit about the transition and how Johnson Wales has been so far.
So Jay seen I was in the transfer portal, and he actually reached out to me to go to Johnson Wales, and I was a little, I didn't too. It was, I knew they were a good school and they had great coaches, and I knew Jay had success, and he was going out. He was their 25er, and they were going out, and I knew they needed another 25er. So I went there, and it took me a while to actually get there. I think I went there like a week before school is when I rolled, because just like financials and stuff, you know, we had some troubles. But
I remember this a little bit too.
We're good now. Yeah, but I mean, I got there, and I was just the guy. As soon as I get there, I knew I was gonna start at 120, and I was gonna teach a lot of. I knew I was gonna. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I knew I was gonna get there and show a lot of the things that I've learned at Penn State. So, like you said, like he would have used me as a resource, which they did. And you know, I help a lot of the guys now, and I'm just trying to be the best version of myself. You know, still. So I work hard, and I'm aiming for that national title next year.
I think
I would have got it this year too if I
think so too, and I think you're very capable.
Put them into it.
And we're going to talk about, before we wrap up, I want to talk about some of the training you're doing now, which I find to be, you know, super interesting. And you're doing a lot of good work to get ready to go. But, you know, I think the move to Johnson Wales was really good because you did get a lot of great experience at Penn State. You got to meet a lot of good people, and you got to be in a room that was, you know, tough, man, as tough as they come. And I think if you stayed there, you still would have been successful because that's the type of person you are. But, you know, it's hard to regroup sometimes. And that's another maturity thing. Like, hey, let me regroup. Let me do this. You know, let me work hard. Now, Coach, watching Justin, like, you know, I talk to Justin all the time. Well, not all the time, but I talk to Justin enough. And I talk to Khalid all the time. So I'm very aware of what Justin's doing. And this man has been putting in the work, Coach, during this offseason. He's been working.
Yeah, always.
I follow him on social medias and stuff like that. And for our listeners, I don't know if you know this guy, Coach, but do you know who Dominic Cruz is, Coach?
I don't.
So he was a UFC champ like 2 years ago, but he's one of the best UFC fighters in the world. He's one of their commentators on pay-per-views and stuff. Like, he's a big deal. And Justin's Instagram story yesterday was him wrestling with him in some cage in Arizona. So he's over there. And I'm going to let Justin speak about all of this, but, you know, he made good friends with Shaq, but he also made good friends with Roman Bravo Young, who I think is possibly the best 133 pounder in the country. Like, he's a star, superstar. And him and Justin just must have clicked. And so Justin's over there traveling, working out with him. I see some treadmill stuff. I saw you at that gym that David Taylor goes to, I think. Didn't you go work out there a couple times? Yeah, so you've done the full spectrum. So tell us a little bit about your pandemic training? Because I feel like you've taken it to another level.
Yeah. So I mean, since I was younger, I've been wanting to do MMA. So even before wrestling, before jiu-jitsu, like I remember my first fight was watching Chuck Liddell fight when I was like 8 years old, and I just been fascinated with MMA ever since. So, you know, I became good friends with, like, honestly, Roman's probably like my best friend right now. You know, we're like this, we're close, and I train with him a lot. He helps me better as a person. He helps me become a better person, and he's actually taught me a lot in the wrestling world too. You know, he's freaking amazing. He's good. He's a good wrestler, to say the least. But I went to Arizona. He put me on to some of his coaches, and you know, I've just been training with him a lot ever since. And I've met a lot of people on the way. You know, I met Dominic Cruz. I met Shane Burgos. Those guys are in New Jersey as well, the UFC fighters. So I met a lot of UFC fighters and a lot of connections, and I'm excited to get into that realm after college. So MMA after college, that's the plan. And for now, I'm just working hard. You know, I believe in myself. So
Love it. I think that's the biggest thing too, right?
So next year national title, and the year after that MMA. That's the plan.
I like that.
Next year national title, the year after MMA.
I like it. I'm excited to see that. And I think for you, Justin, I think as long as you're believing in yourself and you're working hard, your limit is limitless. Really, you can do whatever you want. Like, you have the toolbox to do it. And I think having that, you know, having somebody like Roman too in your life now, where you always worked hard and you always wanted to be good, but to see somebody that's achieving greatness and you're watching like the path that he's taking to achieve greatness, I think is a good thing that you like. I could emulate that. I could do that too. You know, I could do these workouts.
I mean, and I think he's a friend, but he's also sorry, he's a friend, like one of my close friends, but he's also a role model. You know, I look up to him in a way because I see his guy and it just pushes me to want to work hard and, you know, achieve my goals.
He seems like a good kid too, and I like his I like the way it seems like he thinks. He seems like he's a good guy. I think that's the most important too. And we've talked about this, Justin, and Coach D, you could hop in on this too. But, you know, at the end of the day, wrestling's going to be done, you know, and then even MMA, when you do that, that's going to be done too, you know, eventually. For you, and hopefully not for a long time, maybe national champion, maybe 10 years of MMA under your belt, who knows, you know, and now 11 years later, now we're done, right? And it ends. And you're going to have to move forward in whatever it may be, whether it's being a dad, a husband, a wrestling coach, a teacher, a businessman, whatever the heck you're going to be, right? But I think if you keep those attributes you're learning through the sport and you're learning through people like Roman and you learn from coaches past and maybe teammates past, your trajectory is going to be really good. I can't see you not being successful because of your work ethic through the sport and, you know, the places you put yourself, right? It's almost like blessings, but in the same sense, you put yourself at Penn State. I mean, that was a big step for you, right? Like, a lot of people would be scared to take that step to go into a room like that, and you weren't. And by not being scared, you know, you met a guy like Shaq, you met a guy like Roman, Roman ended up being, like you said, a best friend, but a role model at the same time. And then you took the chance to say, okay, I'm done with Penn State. You know, no disrespect to those guys, but I'm done here. I want to go to my next chapter. And you meet a guy like Coach Morris, who also, you know, is a good dude. And, you know, he's there, he's got your back, and you got guys like Jay around and, you know, all that. So I think you've put yourself in a position to be extremely successful. And I'm really looking forward to watching how successful you are.
For me, it's, yep. Thank you. I appreciate that. And for me, it's more about, you know, pushing yourself. Like, no one could ever say like I don't work hard, because I know I work hard. Yeah. And I push myself every day. You know, I don't go into practice to fool around or to laugh and you know, just, you know, I want to go into practice and get 1% better every day. That's my goal, 1% better, and work hard. Sometimes it's even more. Sometimes it's 2%, 3% better. I get. You know, I work hard and I know I'm going to see some goals someday. So I know I'm going to achieve them. So
I believe it, and I think for you, Justin, it's good for us even. You know, just same as the Jay interview almost, where, you know, you started a little bit later and you figured it out and you got good. It can be done, right? And I think the big thing for you, Justin, was you bought in, right? Even your 10th grade year, I would have to probably say, come on, Justin, come to practice. Where are you? Like, come on, let's go. By 12th grade, I didn't have to do that anymore. You were ready to go. You go to college. But even when you were in college, you did so good at Penn State. But I think, you know, every time, some once in a while, you come home in the summer and you'd be like, you know, I don't know, you know, whatever. But when you were in the room, you would do great. But you're kind of like, And now watching what you've done this offseason and keeping a close, you know, finger on what you've been doing this offseason, I think you put the puzzle together. Like, I think you put the puzzle together. And not that you never were a hard worker. You always were a hard worker. But maybe there's a confidence thing with it. I'm not sure. But like, you're putting yourself in these situations, these uncomfortable situations to get better. And I'm seeing it. I'm watching it with my eyes. You know, I'm watching him do these treadmill sprints with Roman in this weird gym and like killing it, you know? And I think that's going to be it. I think you really put yourself, and at the end of the day, that should get you a national title, right? But if it doesn't, like you said,
I think this year I really made some jumps for
I
sure.
think you
This
did too.
summer I made some jumps.
I would put a lot of money on you. Not that I would ever bet on college wrestling, but I would put a lot of money on you being a national champ this year. But with that being said, if it doesn't pan out that way, you know, like you said, nobody could say I never worked hard. You could look in the mirror and you could say, hey, I did my thing. You know, the chips didn't fall my way that day, but I put myself in the position. And because I put myself in that position, everything else is going to work out for me because I have the right mindset now. And I'm very excited. But Justin, we'll let D wrap it up. I pretty much said my last words about Sam again anyways. And Justin, you can wrap it all up at the end and put a bow on this sucker, and then we'll be out of here. So go ahead, D, hit him with your last words, brother.
Justin, we're looking forward to your next year in college, and the national title soon to come. You got us in your corner, and we're going to come out and watch. So good luck, buddy.
One thing I want to add, Justin, before I wrap up completely, because I already kind of did wrap up by saying all that other stuff I just said. But one thing I want for the people that are watching, we didn't really get to talk about so much. I probably was thinking of it, and then it went out my mind because I'm so cluttered in there. But I've been also noticing that he's been helping out. Justin has been helping out Khalid with, Maddie and PJ, and they work out sometimes. And
wow.
I think that's really good. I think he's a beast, but I think that's really good what you're doing for two reasons, maybe more than two reasons, but two that come off the top of my head. One, it's always good to give back. You know, me as a coach, as a teacher, and I think Coach DeBus is the same. Of course, we like to get paid or whatever, but we're not Rockefellers because of our jobs, right? So I think I more do it because I love the feeling of giving back, and I love the feeling of seeing kids get better. So I think that's really good for you that you're doing that, and I appreciate that. But I also think it's just going to make you even better of a wrestler because you're so smart. And for you to have to break things down and slow them down here and there for Maddie and PJ, who are superstars, but you could spar with them, you could feel them, you could help them in certain positions. I think that's going to elevate.
And they teach me too sometimes, you know. They're so good too. I mean, I learn things from them too sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
They're not like this average wrestler. They're in the country, you know.
They're good. They're very good.
Tough for sure. They're tough.
I think that's something to think about. I think some older guys need to be a little bit more willing maybe to help the next generation, because I think they don't realize, they think, oh, I don't want to help this guy. He's not a college guy. But next thing you know, I think I'm a far better wrestler now as a coach than I was when I was 23 years old. Physically, I'm not even close. But so my 23-year-old self would beat me. But if my 23-year-old self had my wrestling IQ, he would be better than he was, right? So I think that's something to think about too. So the more you get your hands on younger kids to help them improve, I think you're going to just keep, I'm sure that's the same for MMA with jiu-jitsu and boxing and all that stuff. Anybody you could help, take that opportunity to help that person, because it's going to make you slow down the process and you could think about it a little bit more, and it'll make you better. But just to wrap up again, I'm super proud of you, Justin. I always have been, but now I was proud of you when you took 6th in the state. I was proud of you when you took 3rd in the state. I was proud of you when you made that decision to go to Penn State. But at the moment that we're at right now, I might be the most proud of you, because what's going on with this pandemic, it's hard to train to your fullest. And you are not only finding opportunities, you're finding the best opportunities. And I think that says something about you and your work ethic. And I'm super excited to see how your season goes next year. But Justin, you can wrap it up for us, and then we'll put a bow on this thing.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys for having me on. And I'm going to continue to work hard and get that national title next year for sure. I mean, nothing's going to stop me this year.
Hey, look. If COVID's not crazy, maybe me and D will take a road trip and watch you win a national championship.
Oh yeah, for sure.
100%. I would love to go.
That'd be a lot of fun. I would definitely enjoy that.
100%.
As long as Coach
I would do almost anything to get out of my house.
You're gonna what, Justin?
No, I'm gonna put on a show next year for sure. So
I believe that.
I'm not gonna, I'm not playing game. I'm not playing games next year.
I was going to tell you, we would take Coach KD with us as long as Johnson and Wales or somebody could put him up in a different room, because I'm not going to sleep near that guy because he snores like somebody's murdering.
He snores some.
He probably never told you, Justin, but one year at States, he was so bad that I got up and I was holding a pillow over his face. But I didn't actually put it over his face. I was holding it like
allegedly.
And he woke up. He woke up and saw me. I'm like, shut up. And I'm like holding it over his face, about to suffocate him. But knowing Khalid, he might eat the pillow. You never know. Poor Khalid. I'm always taking jabs at him. KD Train. I'm sorry.
You gotta love him.
I do love KD. For the record, I love KD. I'm just busting chops. He's a great coach and a great guy, but he might eat a pillow. This is actually a true statement. But anyway, Justin, you're the man. We appreciate you coming on. Hang on for 1 second. I'm going to stop recording.